Caitlin Clark issue, I mean, they're talking about civil rights violations. I kind of liked what Stephen A. Smith said there. I don't know about civil rights violations, but is there something the league can do to stop this behavior toward Clark?
I don't think the league has almost done zero.
Caitlin Clark isn't just good. She's a walking highlight reel.
Clark! She's possessed!
Rewriting the rules of women's basketball with every game she plays.
You bet! Caitlin Clark! Absolutely ridiculous!
Her court vision, jaw-dropping range, and ice-cold confidence have left opponents stunned, scrambling, and sometimes downright humiliated. From buzzer beaters that shatter hopes to no-look passes that leave defenders spinning, Clark has a flair for turning competition into a showcase of her dominance. These aren't just wins, they're moments etched into basketball history. Today, we're breaking down 15 unforgettable times Caitlin Clark completely embarrassed her opponents. At number 15, silencing the Valkyries' big debut. On June 19, 2025, was supposed to be the Golden State Valkyries' night. A grand debut, the newest WNBA expansion team brimming with confidence and backed by weeks of media buzz.
Air ball. 0-4 from downtown. Bibby. Her second three.
But Caitlin Clark had no interest in letting their fairy tale launch go smoothly. Midway through the third quarter at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, she casually created space with a sharp step back, then launched a deep three over her former Iowa teammate, Kate Martin. The ball splashed through the net with surgical precision. Any hint of friendship vanished the second they stepped on the hardwood. Clark didn't just score. She punctuated the shot with an icy, unflinching stare toward the Valkyries' bench, as if daring anyone to try her next. It wasn't just a bucket, it was a statement. The kind of play that shifts the entire mood of a game. The crowd erupted, feeding off her fire even as the scoreboard tilted against the fever. Social media lit up within seconds, clips flooding timelines with captions like, "Cece's got that dog in her." For the Valkyries, it was a harsh reality check. Guarding Clark from deep wasn't just hard, it was borderline impossible. Their sparkling debut moment was hijacked, flipped into a highlight that belonged entirely to her. The message was loud and clear. She could dismantle hype in a single shot. Before the 2025 season reached its peak, Lexi Brown had already thrown shade at Caitlin Clark. And this is next up. At number 14. On Gil's Arena, she dismissed Clark's game as nothing more than endless threes, even suggesting that with the same green light, she could do the same. But as the season rolled on, that narrative didn't just age poorly, it collapsed entirely. By September, the numbers painted a very different picture. Clark wasn't just scoring, she was orchestrating. The same player accused of being one-dimensional had led the NCAA in assists for 3 straight years and was now topping the WNBA charts too, dishing out over 8 per game. That's hardly the stat line of a so-called just a shooter. When the fever and sparks clashed twice, the scoreboard told its own story. Clark delivered 41 points to Brown's 8, snatched 15 rebounds to her 9, and racked up 14 assists while Brown managed 4. She swiped 7 steals, swatted 4 shots, and even in shooting efficiency, effective field goal percentage, Clark held the edge, 45 to 32%. It wasn't just a win on paper, it was a dismantling. Every stat, every possession was a quiet rebuttal to the claim that Caitlin Clark was anything less than special. But do you know what takes it up a notch? Keep watching. At number 13, Caitlin Clark's silent answer to Diana Taurasi. From the start of her WNBA journey, Caitlin Clark found herself facing criticism from one of the sport's biggest legends, Diana Taurasi. Long before they met on the court, Taurasi had publicly downplayed Clark's college success, warning that the pros would be a harsh awakening, a place where she'd be up against grown women who'd been dominating the game for years. She even went so far as to say she'd take Paige Buchers over Clark with a number 1 pick, praising Paige's passing as the deciding factor. For Clark, the sting went deeper. She had grown up idolizing Taurasi, naming her as one of the first women's basketball players she truly looked up to. Yet despite Clark's historic college career and star power entering the league, Taurasi never reached out, no advice, no encouragement. When they finally faced each other, Clark let her play do the talking. Their first meeting ended with her dropping 15 points and 12 assists, setting the tone. With Taurasi sidelined in their second clash, Clark still dominated, 20 points, 13 assists, and a blowout win. Then came the third encounter, Taurasi's last chance to back her words. Clark responded with 29 points and 10 assists, completing a 3-0 sweep that turned all the preseason doubts into quiet admiration. And as if that sweep wasn't enough to make her point, Clark delivered another unforgettable highlight that left the crowd gasping. Number 12. Stealing spotlight. In a packed arena, she found herself sizing up Allen at the top of the arc. The defense was tight, at least until Clark unleashed a sudden step back from deep beyond the line. Allen's feet tangled, her balance gone, and she dropped helplessly to the hardwood, forced to watch as Clark launched the shot. The ball rattled out, but that was almost beside the point. The image of a fallen defender and Clark's calm, almost amused expression was already etched in the moment. It was the kind of play that spoke louder than any stat sheet, a flash of swagger, control, and confidence that left fans roaring and social media buzzing within minutes. For all the points she racks up and the assists she threads, sometimes it's these electric blink-and-you-miss-it bursts of pure skill that remind everyone why Caitlin Clark isn't just beating opponents. She's putting them on posters. Moving on to number 11, schooling the dream with one pass. It was May 22, 2025, and the Indiana Fever's clash with the Atlanta Dream had been anything but easy for Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin, we know very well she likes to let it fly from the left, pulls up baseline, good to go.
Foul trouble had stalked her from the opening tip, forcing her to play cautiously. But with the score tight in the final minutes of the fourth quarter, she delivered a reminder that even on an off night, her vision could slice through defenses like a hot knife through butter. Standing beyond the arc, she drew in the defense with a subtle glance to the wing, then, without warning, whipped a no-look laser straight through a maze of dream jerseys. Alicia Gray froze. Ryan Howard turned too late, and the ball landed perfectly in Aaliyah Boston's hands for a simple, uncontested finish.
Tiptoeing the baseline out to Boston. Boston will hoist and send us into overtime.
The crowd roared as the Fever edged ahead, eventually sealing an 81-76 win. Clips of the play exploded online within minutes, fans dubbing it vintage Clark magic and replaying it like a scene from a basketball mixtape. Atlanta's defenders were chasing shadows, left guessing where the ball might appear next. One perfectly timed, perfectly disguised pass flipped the script entirely, turning a tense battle into a viral masterclass in court vision. Now, sometimes defense isn't about blocking shots or stealing passes, it's about getting inside your opponent's head. Stick around, because the next play on our list takes mind games to a whole new level. Number 10. Clark turned defense into mind games. Sometimes defense isn't about blocking shots or stealing passes, it's about getting inside your opponent's head. In a showdown against South Carolina, Caitlin Clark delivered a masterclass in psychological warfare. Faced with Raven Johnson at the three-point line, Clark didn't even bother to close the gap. Instead, she stood yards away, posture loose, eyes wandering elsewhere, as if Johnson weren't even part of the play. With a casual flick of her hand, she waved her opponent off. An unspoken, "You're not worth my attention." Johnson froze, clearly caught between the insult and the opportunity. Should she take the wide-open shot, or was this some kind of trap? That hesitation was all Clark needed. The moment stretched long enough for the pressure to shift entirely onto Johnson, who finally tried to move the ball straight into a turnover. It was more than a defensive tactic. It was a public dare, a test of nerve played out under the bright lights. In just a few seconds, Clark managed to strip away her opponent's confidence without even lifting her voice, proving that sometimes the most devastating defense is pure, calculated indifference. Next, at number 9, triple-double takeover against Chicago, May 17, 2025, wasn't just the Indiana Fever's season opener, it was Caitlin Clark's personal showcase. From the first whistle, she treated the Chicago sky like a canvas, painting a masterpiece of dominance that had fans buzzing coast to coast. Her stat line was absurd: 20 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, plus 4 blocks and 2 steals for good measure. But the numbers only told part of the story. Clark was everywhere, pulling up from the logo with effortless range, threading behind-the-back passes through traffic, and crashing the boards like she owned the paint. Each possession felt like a new chapter in her highlight reel, and every bucket came with the sting of a player who refused to ease up. Angel Reese tried to rally her squad, but even her energy couldn't slow Clark's relentless pace. The Sky's defense collapsed under the weight of her all-around attack, scrambling to adjust only to be outmaneuvered again and again. By the time the Fever sealed a 93-58 rout, social media was in overdrive, flooded with clips captioned, "Caitlin just embarrassed Chicago." It wasn't merely a win, it was a warning shot to the league that triple-doubles might just be her opening act. And just when it seemed Caitlin Clark had nothing left to prove, the biggest shock came, not on the court, but from the selection table. Keep watching to find out. Number 8. The absurdity of Team USA's snub. Team USA left her off the Olympic roster.
Caitlin Clark, WNBA Rookie of the Month, packing arenas while averaging 17 and 6 assists. That's not enough to make the Olympic roster.
Brushing it off with vague talk about meeting criteria and committee decisions. In other words, they claimed she didn't fit the mold. But the numbers tell a very different story. On the latest MVP ladder, A'ja Wilson of the Las Vegas Aces sits firmly at number 1. Nneka Ogwumike, not even in the top 3. Instead, right behind Wilson at number 2, wedged between her and Minnesota Lynx star Napheesa Collier, is none other than Clark. Essentially, the committee passed over a player widely regarded as the second best in the entire league. This is the same rookie who transformed a struggling Indiana Fever squad into a playoff contender, leading them to the league's third-best record since June. Her ability to drain a step-back 3 with the shot clock ticking down, her precision passing, and her relentless leadership have made critics eat their words. If the goal was to pick the best, leaving her out wasn't just questionable. It was downright unbelievable. Up at number 7, when teammates turned to opponents. The moment wasn't about the scoreboard or the stat sheet. It was about 2 friends whose journey had taken them from the same locker room to opposite ends of the court. Caitlin Clark and Kate Martin had spent years at Iowa sharing victories, setbacks, and a chemistry so natural that fans joked they were thick as thieves. Together, they read each other's movements like a favorite book, turning passes into poetry and games into memory reels. But in May, the narrative shifted. Clark, now the number 1. 1 pick leading the Indiana Fever, and Martin, drafted 18th to the powerhouse Las Vegas Aces, were set to meet as WNBA opponents for the first time. The anticipation buzzed through the arena, yet before tip-off, they carved out a quiet pocket of time just for them. Across the hardwood, they spotted each other, smiles breaking into a warm embrace, a quick exchange of words that needed no explanation. Cameras caught the moment, but the emotion in it didn't need captions. This was more than a pre-game ritual. It was a reminder that some bonds survive jersey changes, team rivalries, and the pull of professional competition. On the court, they would battle. Off it, nothing had changed. At number 6, Liberty's Commissioner's Cup meltdown. The New York Liberty stepped onto the floor expecting to control the game, but Caitlin Clark had been quietly plotting a different ending. Fresh off a 5-game absence with a quad injury, she returned sharper than ever. June 14, 2025, would become the night she turned the defending champions into spectators. She carved them apart with 32 points, 8 rebounds, and 9 assists in a 102-88 fever upset, playing with the urgency of someone who'd been forced to sit and watch for far too long. Her first half assault was relentless, 6 three-pointers that felt more like precision strikes than jump shots. Sabrina Ionescu and Brianna Stewart tried everything to slow her down, but Clark's step-backs, hesitation bursts, and pinpoint passing kept them guessing. Midway through the third quarter, she drilled a deep triple so cold it froze the Liberty bench mid-celebration. By the final buzzer, social media was in overdrive, captions flooding in. Caitlin's back, nobody's safe. But that performance wasn't an isolated spark. It was the opening act. And let's rewind a bit to see how that same unstoppable fire turned the Sparks game into a personal milestone. Number 5, breaking the 30-point barrier. Coming off her electrifying dismantling of the Liberty, Clark carried that same fire into her clash with the Los Angeles Sparks, this time turning it into a personal milestone. On May 28, 2024, in front of a buzzing Fever crowd, she erupted for 30 points, her first time hitting that mark in the WNBA. The Fever fell 88-82, but Clark's performance was pure theater. Equal parts sharp shooting, fearless drives, and lockdown defense. One early sequence had the arena shaking. She swatted a shot at the rim, snatched the defensive rebound, and, without breaking stride, drilled a logo 3 that splashed through before the Sparks could even reset. Moments later, she denied another attempt at the basket, timing her leap perfectly to send the ball flying in the opposite direction. Her footwork was just as lethal, selling a fake so convincingly it left her defender leaning the wrong way before she finished with a silky reverse layup. And the threes kept coming. One deep bomb left the Sparks bench frozen mid-yell, while another in the closing minutes spun off her fingertips like it had been scripted for a highlight reel. Every shot carried the weight of a player refusing to be ordinary, making her first 30-point night unforgettable despite the final score. Next up, claiming the number 4 spot, is a dazzling ankle-breaking layup you won't believe. With the Fever pushing the pace, she spotted a narrow lane to the rim and wasted no time attacking it. Minnesota forward Bridget Carlton stepped up to cut her off, but Clark had already set the trap. A sharp crossover sent Carlton shifting one way while Clark exploded in the opposite direction, gliding past her with a burst so smooth it looked effortless. In one fluid motion, she sliced through the paint, lifted off the hardwood, and banked in the layup before the defense could even react. The crowd's reaction was instant, an eruption of disbelief and applause at the sheer precision of the move. It wasn't just speed, it was control. Clark's handle kept the ball glued to her fingertips as she weaved past reaching arms, her footwork perfectly balanced to finish through contact. In a single sequence, she turned what should have been a contested drive into a piece of ankle-breaking artistry, leaving the Lynx scrambling in her wake and proving once again that when she sees a path to the basket, stopping her is almost impossible. At number 3 is a record-breaking night against Dallas. Fresh off her string of jaw-dropping performances, Clark turned her attention to the Dallas Wings and walked away etched into WNBA history. On July 16th, she delivered a masterclass in playmaking, racking up 19 assists in a single game, shattering the previous league record of 18 set by Courtney Vandersloot in 2020. The moment that sealed it was pure precision. Clark threading a perfectly timed pass to Kelsey Mitchell, who buried three-pointer that officially rewrote the record books. But the numbers alone couldn't capture the artistry. From the opening tip, Clark manipulated the defense like a chess grandmaster, drawing help, exploiting gaps, and setting her teammates up for wide-open looks. No pass felt forced, no possession wasted, just a relentless stream of opportunities she created out of nothing. Even in a 101-93 loss, her performance had an extra layer of history, That night, she also became the fastest player in WNBA history to reach 400 career points and 200 assists, needing just 26 games to surpass the pace set by Seattle Storm legend Sue Bird, who achieved it in 33. For anyone watching, it wasn't just about the record. It was a rare glimpse of a player whose vision could bend the game entirely to her will. And that brings us to number 2 on our list, a moment that felt less like a pass and more like a magic trick. Number 2, the AllStar stage. During the 2024 WNBA All-Star Game, Caitlin Clark reminded everyone why her court vision is already the stuff of legend. Pushing the ball up the hardwood with defenders scrambling to keep pace, she spotted Jonquel Jones cutting toward the rim. Without slowing down or even glancing directly, Clark whipped a cross-court laser from well beyond mid-court, threading it past outstretched arms and landing it right in Jones's hands. One smooth gather, one effortless finish, and the arena erupted. It wasn't just the distance that made jaws drop, though that alone was impressive. It was the precision, the timing, and the sheer confidence to deliver that pass in the middle of an all-star showcase filled with the league's best. In one motion, she turned a routine possession into a highlight worthy of endless replays, setting up valuable points for Team WNBA and leaving her teammates grinning in disbelief. Moments like this prove that Clark doesn't just play the game, she reads it 2 steps ahead. When the slightest gap appears, she has the nerve, precision, and flair to turn the impossible into routine magic. Taking the number 1 spot, Shattering the Sun in the Commissioner's Cup semifinal. Building on her unstoppable all-star brilliance, Clark's defining moment came in the fiery Commissioner's Cup semifinal against the Connecticut Sun on June 18, 2025. From the jump, the game was a storm of tension. Technical fouls flew, emotions boiled over, and ejections punctuated the chaos. The Sun tried to use their physical defense to break Clark's rhythm, but she remained ice-cold, unshaken in the eye of the storm. Trailing late in the 4th quarter, Clark stepped up with a jaw-dropping 30-foot shot over Marina Mabrey, a clutch bucket that shifted the momentum instantly. On the defensive end, she locked down Mabrey, forcing a critical turnover that sealed the game. Finishing with 27 points and a game-winning steal, Clark's performance was a masterclass in resilience and precision. After the game, she didn't mince words, dropping a 9-word line that echoed across social media. "They tried to bully me. I don't break." Fans erupted, calling it Caitlin's revenge game, a night where the Sun's aggression only fueled her dominance. The Fever advanced to the Cup final, but more importantly, Clark cemented why she's the face of the WNBA. Unbreakable, fearless, and always ready to rise when it matters most. So, which one of these highlights will have you replaying it again and again? We'd like to hear your pick. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more.